Hello everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Danuț Manda and I'm Product and Support Manager at StonikByte. Today I will present great gadgets for Jira, one of our plugins that are on the marketplace. My presentation consists in some PowerPoint slides that I prepared, but it will be also a live demo on my demo system, and I will show you how to use the product. First of all, I will tell you a bit about us, about StonikByte. We are a company established in 2011. We are currently a gold marketplace partner, and we have 3 apps on the marketplace. Besides great gadgets that I will present today, we have also documents for Jira, a document management system that allows storing and managing project-related files in an organized way in Jira. And Project Team, that is an app that allows extending user profiles with custom fields, and it also highlights the theme of the project and can display organizational charts, organizational diagrams. Great Gadgets is an app that we want to, or at least our goal is to make it a complete gadgets pack for tracking projects in an agile manner, especially Scrum and Kanban projects. The idea of the app came while working on agile project as Scrum Master. I was working some time ago for a company in which I had multiple teams, multiple agile teams, and while using Jira, I found a lot of gaps in tracking agile projects in a good way. For example, I was missing a good release Burndown chart or a velocity chart at that time, and I said, well, what if we create a plugin for this for our own use, and maybe to make it available for other people to use. And we launched the first version in January 2017. It was initially launched on cloud, and a few months after we managed to launch the version for server and data center. And currently the app has more than 1,300 active installations according to the numbers we have in the Atlassian marketplace, including not only the cloud version but also data center and the server version of the app. The app supports Jira Cloud, Server and Data Center, as I said, and it's compatible with Jira Software and Jira Service Management. Even if some of the gadgets are agile specific, you will see that they can be used on Jira Service Management, for example, where there is no that agile part, but some of the gadgets can be used there as well, and they might be really helpful. What Great Gadgets offers? Well, it offers 12 gadgets for creating powerful dashboards in Jira. I can show them here. I have a dashboard here with all the gadgets that are included. These gadgets helps you to track the projects more efficiently and more effectively. I'm saying efficiently because our goal is to allow tracking projects without using Excel spreadsheets, for example, or having the need to do a lot of manual work to create charts and display metrics. So it should make your work easier and more effectively, because it helps you calculate the right metrics that you need for agile projects especially. The big majority of the gadgets have also a data tab in which besides the chart that it displays, it comes also with a short report that can be exported in CSV format if you want to share it or use that info. They can be also imported in Confluence, and even if it's a Jira plugin, you can use these gadgets in Confluence pages as well. But this is currently possible only on server and data center. We are actively working right now on making these gadgets available for Confluence as well on cloud. Yeah, why dashboards and not reports, for example? This was one of our initial questions when we started to build this app. We had to choose between dashboard gadgets and reports. In our opinion, the Jira dashboards are powerful, much powerful than the reports, because they can be customized. You can have all the info in one place, and dashboards can be shared with the team and with project stakeholders, with management. So this way you create a lot of transparency, and you can use these dashboards as information radiators, for example, to make the teamwork visible to everyone in the company. Also, what I liked about the dashboards is the fact that they support that wallboard mode, in which you can display the gadgets on big TV screens or TV monitors in the open space of the team, for example. Personally, if I have to choose between a report and the dashboard, I will always choose dashboard because that's much more powerful than the reports. I will start by presenting the gadgets that are specific to Scrum projects, but not before having a quick look over the Scrum as a process. Maybe most of you are already familiar with Scrum, but I just want to highlight some things to look a bit at the process to be all on the same page. Scrum as a methodology, as a framework, as you know, is suitable for development projects. It's for mid and long-term projects that take weeks or months, in which, for example, you have to develop a software product, let's say. And the first step in building that software product is to create the product backlog, which consists in a set of items to be developed, to be worked in order to obtain the software application at the end. So the first step is to create a backlog. Backlog consists in user stories that are end-to-end functionalities of the product to be developed, maybe technical tasks, so all the work that has to be performed in order to build the application. And this backlog is ranked. It has the most important items at the top of it, and every backlog item has an estimate. Estimation is usually done in story points, so it's a size estimate in story points. But some people prefer to estimate the work items in hours, for example. So both work. And once this backlog is defined, there is a team, the development team, that starts consuming this backlog in iterations called sprints that are usually 2 or 3 weeks long. So at the beginning of every sprint, the team, together with the product owner, do a planning meeting in which they subtract the top item of the backlog, from the product backlog, that are going to be worked in that sprint, in the sprint that is about to start. And these items, this subset of items, form the sprint backlog. And then the team starts working on these items and develop them one by one until the sprint is finished. And at the end, they create a new work increment of the software that they built. And when the sprint is finished, a new sprint starts. So it's a iterative process until this product backlog is consumed and the application is created and eventually released at the end. So this is Scrum in a nutshell. Now, for this type of project or process, there are 3 essential metrics and charts that you, as a Scrum Master or as an Agile project manager or as a team member, should look at. First is the sprint Burndown chart. The sprint Burndown chart helps you see how the team progresses during the sprint. So when they started the sprint, they committed to do some items of the backlog, so this sprint backlog, and the sprint Burndown chart helps you see how the team progresses during the sprint in finalizing the work that they committed. So it helps you see, is my sprint on track? Are there any scope changes, and so on. Next to this is the release Burndown chart, which it's somehow similar with the Burndown chart, but it's at the whole release level. So it helps you see what the progress is at the whole project, how my team progresses in finalizing this product backlog, in working that backlog. And third metric is the team velocity, which indicates how productive your team is, how many items they manage to get done, how much business value they deliver every sprint, and if they improve or not in time. And for these three metrics, our plugin offers three gadgets, one gadget for each of these. The first one is the sprint burndown chart gadget, which, as I said, gives the status of the current or a past sprint. And what is cool about this gadget, for example, is the fact that it can be configured as burndown chart, as it here, but also as a burnup chart. I will show you right after. It supports calculation by story points, time estimates, issue count, or any numerical custom field, because there might be teams that do not use story points, for example, to estimate their backlog. I saw teams that use a custom field and they put the estimation there in that Jira custom field. So this chart supports also custom fields. And also, an important feature is the fact that you can include a subtask in the calculation and have the subtasks included in the chart. In addition, it offers a data tab with a nice sprint report. I will show you right away. So for now, I will create a new dashboard. I will name it Scrum dashboard. And I will add that gadget here. So for now, I will use the sprint burndown chart. This is the gadget configuration. So I have a title that I can set. I will configure this as a burndown chart for the current sprint, so I can keep the current title. I select my agile board here, and I select the sprints here. I will choose the option to select the latest sprint. This automatically changes the sprint when you create a new sprint, so you don't need to come here to reconfigure the gadget manually with a new sprint. I will choose to calculate. So here I have the options to generate the chart by story points. Story point estimate is for the next gen project. The app supports next gen projects as well. Original time estimate and time remaining and time spent are options if you use time estimates. Issue count, it doesn't count story points or time, it just counts the issue numbers. And these are the custom fields in case you have custom fields that you use to estimate your stories. So I will choose to calculate by story points, and I will configure it as a burndown chart. To configure it as a burndown chart, I need this line, ideal burndown remaining, because burndown chart is based on remaining work. And I will choose to display also the scope here, and I will select the option for showing a data table. And now I have here the burndown chart for my current sprint. As you can see, so what I have here, it's this is the timeline. This is the day 0 of the sprint, and this is the end of my sprint when the sprint will be finished. With green here is the scope. It's the total estimation of the items that were included in the sprint. And I can see here if the scope changes along the sprint. So this displays eventual scope changes. As you can see here, from 120, scope was changed to 122. So probably the team added 2 story points item in the sprint backlog. And remaining displays the remaining time, the remaining work along the time during my sprint. So in day 0 of the sprint, remaining was 120, same with the scope, because no work was done in day 0. But after that, the team progressed and closed items, and remaining decreases. For example, this is current day. The remaining is 61 at this moment. It is below the ideal burndown. So the ideal burndown line here tells you how to progress from a day to another in order to finish the work at the end of the sprint. So you start the sprint with 120 story points remaining. To finish the work at the sprint, you should progress like this in the ideal case, like it is in the ideal burndown line here. And this is the actual remaining work that is displayed now. That is the current remaining work of the team. As you can see, the remaining is below the ideal burn down, which means that we are ahead of schedule with the sprint. So this gadget gives you the progress of the team for the current sprint, and it comes also with a nice report here. As you can see, it gives you the sprint name, state of the sprint, when the sprint starts, when the sprint finishes, a list with the completed issues, and the estimate status of each of them, and the list with not completed issues, and the subtasks are included as well in my example here. Okay, and the gadget can be configured as Burnup. I will show you. So sprint Burndown chart, this one. Okay, let's select the same board, same sprint by story points. All you have to do is just to choose the right lines here. So ideal Burnup and burned in this case, and you will have a Burnup chart that indicates, this time it shows the items burned along the time in the sprint, and how the ideal Burnup indicates how you should ideally burn items in order to reach 100 items burned at the end of the sprint. So I will rename this because it's a Burnup. I will change the title here. I will say Burnup chart, current sprint. Okay. Next to this is the release Burnup or Burndown chart. This chart gives you the status at the whole release level, or you can configure it to give you the status at the sprint level if you want, in case you have multiple teams and multiple sprints running in parallel. You can use this to see the progress of the current sprint of all the teams. I will show you how. And it is very similar with the sprint Burndown chart. The only difference is the fact that it is at the release level. As you will see, it doesn't use a board as input, but it uses a filter. In addition, it supports forecast, so it can make a prediction about the ETA of the release. I will explain how that works. But first of all, let's add this gadget to the board. Okay, so because I finished this, I will move it here. So release Burndown chart is based on a filter. You must have a filter that includes all the items from the release, the whole release backlog. And you set the release start date and end day. I will say 1st of July and end of August. I will group data by 1 week. You can also group it by 1 day. Here you set how the done items are considered. If you select issue status as category done, it will consider as done all the items that are in a green color status from Jira, like done, closed, resolved, and so on. But you can also have the option to consider as done the items that are in the last column of a specific board. And you can configure it similar to the sprint Burndown chart by story points, time estimate, custom field. These are the settings for the forecast. I will explain them. And here you can choose what items, what lines to display. I will configure it as a Burndown. So I will choose ideal Burndown, remaining, and scope. And I will click save. And I have the Burndown chart similar to the sprint Burndown chart, but at the release level. Another cool thing about this gadget is the fact that it displays the forecast. So I will choose this option for the forecast and forecast remaining. So as you can see, it draws a line to the date when the work is about to finish based on the current progress of the team. How this works? Well, let's explain here. So the gadget uses the team velocity. depending on which setting you selected here. So when you select forecast is based on the average velocity of all completed time intervals, the gadget looks at these previous intervals, right? You have weeks here and status at the end of each week, and it determines how much work the team did every week, how many story points they burned every week. And it makes the average of all these intervals and obtains a velocity. For example, the average velocity here is 15 burn story points per interval, per 1 week interval. So in this case, it detects that the velocity is 15 burn story points. And once this velocity is determined, it looks like the remaining work. So remaining is 700 in this example. And then it determines how many intervals you need in order to finish that 700 if you burn 15 story points per week or per interval. And this way it determines the number of intervals needed to finalize the work and determines the ETA. So if you choose this option, the average velocity of all the completed time intervals, it makes the average on all the previous time intervals. If you choose this, it will make the average only of the last 3 or last 5, depending on what you set here. So if I select 3 intervals, it will look, well, what was the progress on the last 3 weeks? So 1, 2, 3. How many story points were burned in this interval, in these 3 weeks? Because these are weeks here. As you can see at the date here, this is 10 July and this is 17 July. So data is grouped by 1 week, not by day here. Because this is how I configure the gadget. And when you configure it to make the average of the last X intervals, it will make the average only on the last X intervals, the most recent intervals. And you have also the option to enter a fixed velocity. If you count on a specific velocity, for example, well, I know that my team will burn 20, or I expect that my team will have a velocity of 20 burn story points per week from now on, you can enter that number here. And the estimate will be based on that velocity that you enter. Let's move on to the third Scrum gadget, which is the team velocity chart gadget. This gadget shows the history for your team, the past sprints. It shows more exactly how much value the team delivers from a sprint to another, and it calculates the team velocity. So let me add this team velocity gadget. So for this, you need a board, a Scrum board. I will select my Scrum board here. You have the options if you want to display only specific sprints. For example, if you have multiple teams in the same board, you can filter the sprints and say only team A. If you want to display the chart only for team A, you can use this filtering here. And you can also display the chart for past sprints completed in specific time intervals. Maybe you want to see the velocity of your team for the last year. You can configure the time interval here. So for this example, I will choose to display the chart for the last 5 sprints. The average velocity will be based on the last 3 sprints, and I will calculate by story points. I can also include subtasks. This is the option to consider the subtask in the calculation. Yeah, that's it. I will click save. And I have the sprint velocity chart for my team. These are the sprints from the past: sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3 to sprint 5. And for every sprint, it displays initial scope, this one. So the initial scope is the amount of work that the team committed at the beginning of the sprint. When they started the sprint, this sums up the size of the sprint backlog. Final scope is the total amount of work at the end of the sprint after eventual scope changes. Okay, and completed is how much work the team managed to get done in that sprint. While the average velocity here is the current velocity calculated as the average of the last 3 sprints according to the setting I put in the gadget configuration. So if I look at this chart, this tells me that the average velocity of my team is increasing from a sprint to another. I can see the fact that they manage to complete most part of the work they committed, but they have a tendency to change the scope of the sprint during the sprint. Additionally to this, you can select, if you want to look at the scope more specifically, you have some additional options here to display scope changes, to display the number of story points added and number of story points removed. So I will check this as well. And for every sprint now, besides the previous numbers, now I have also the scope change here. So this is the scope change. I have also the number of story points added every sprint and number of story points removed every sprint. So, and the gadget displays a detailed report here for every sprint. You can see a detailed report with the items from the sprint, initial scope of every issue, final scope, completed, the amount of work completed, scope change, percentage of scope change, number of story points added and removed. So this is a data report that you can easily export in CSV just by clicking this. You have it in CSV format and you can open it. The CSV is exactly like this. I can click this. So the report is exported. Now let's move on and look a bit at Kanban. Before presenting the gadgets, I will make a short overview of the Kanban process. Kanban, as you know, it's more suitable for operations. It's also used for development, but it's more used for operations. Imagine, for example, a service desk team handling incidents reported by customers, or a company that delivers pizza and they receive orders from customers and they have to deliver the pizza as fast as possible. So this is what Kanban is about. Mainly you have customers reporting issues, and these issues are all accumulated in a single list. Here there is the Kanban backlog, which is ranked by various criteria, having the most important, let's say, items on top of the list. So someone prioritizes the backlog continuously, and or it's prioritized automatically based on specific criteria. And there is a team that picks items continuously from this backlog, drag them in their board, in the to-do board, then resolve them by moving them on doing, and then in done, and so on. And the idea is to resolve the issues as fast as possible. And so for this type of project or process, there are some key metrics and indicators that you should look at. First is the cycle time. Cycle time indicates how long does it take to the team to resolve the issue. So it's about the internal workflow of the team. More exactly, when the issue reached doing, so it was moved in doing, how much took to the team until they move it to done, for example. So this is cycle time, where it could be from to do to done as well. It depends, but mainly it's since the moment the team started working effectively on the issue and until the moment they mark it as resolved. So it's about the internal process. How long does it take to the team to resolve an issue? This is cycle time. Another important metric is the lead time. Lead time indicates how long does it take from reporting to delivery. Is the total time from the customer's perspective. So if I look at this diagram, is from the moment the customer reported the issue until the issue was moved to done. So it's the whole process time in this case. This is lead time. So another important metric is the throughput, or what we name Kanban velocity. Throughput indicates how many issues the team resolves per time unit, how productive this team is, how many issues they resolve in 1 week, let's say. This way you measure the capacity and the productivity of the team. And there is also the work in progress, which is essentials to see if your process has bottlenecks or it works smoothly. So an important indicator you should always look at if you manage such a process or a Kanban team. And for this, we have various gadgets available that I'm going to present. So first, these three gadgets that I have here, cycle time control chart, cycle time histogram, and cycle time trend. These are charts for measuring cycle time and lead time. They are named cycle time, but they can be configured as lead time, or you can configure them to display any time between two specific statuses. So cycle time control chart helps you see what issues took longer and the average cycle time. Cycle time histogram tells you how many issues took longer and the distribution of the cycle time. And the trend indicates how quickly the team resolves the issues and if they improve in time. I will demonstrate how to use them. First is the cycle time control chart gadget. For this, I will create a new dashboard. I will name it Kanban dashboard. And I will add the cycle time control chart. So control chart is based, you can use a Kanban board here or a Scrum board. It works for any of them, or you can use a filter. In this case, I will choose to select a filter. I will select a filter I have, support all issues, for example. And I want to measure the, let's say, cycle time in this case. Cycle time is from the moment an issue reached in progress, so the team effectively started to work on an item, and from the moment it was moved to done, it reached a status category done. So this is how I configure what to measure, how the cycle starts and how the cycle finished. I configured this way, so I am going to measure the cycle time here, cycle time control chart. And I will display the data, let's say, for the last 100 days. I want to calculate cycle time in hours. I have an option to count or not the weekends, because some teams prefer not to include the weekends in the calculation. And yeah, for now, that's all. I will just display the data tab, and I have the control chart displayed. So the horizontal axis, you have the time that was selected, is the time frame, the 100 days back. This is the current date, and this is 100 days back. And these are the issues that had a cycle completed in this time interval. And I can see for every issue on the vertical axis here, this is the cycle time in hours for every issue. If I move the mouse over any of them, I can see this issue had a cycle time of 12 hours. It was resolved here in this time interval, and it has 12 here. It has 12 hours cycle time. This one, for example, has a 96 hours cycle time. So it took much longer. This line indicates the average. So the average is 48 hours for my team. So my team, as an average, resolved issues in 48 hours. This is what the chart indicates. So let's say you should be warned when an issue takes more than 1700 hours, let's say. So I can set that custom threshold, which is this red line here. And now I can easily identify the issues that took longer than expected, that took longer than the threshold I entered. And now I can easily identify them. I simply hover the mouse over the point here, and I can see details about the issue key, how long it took, when the cycle started, when it finished. So I can easily identify and eventually discuss with the team, see what happened, take actions if necessary, and so on. I will move on to histogram chart gadget. So this gadget measured the same thing. It has almost the same settings. The only difference is the way it presents the data. So for this one, I will select a filter with my issues. I will configure it as lead time. So I would say lead time. Lead time is from the moment the issue was created to the moment it was moved to done. And again for 100 days back, again save. So this is the histogram, lead time histogram chart, which displays the distribution of the cycle time for the issues that were resolved in in the time period that I selected. So what does it mean more exactly? For example, this says that in the range 10-20, which is the cycle time in hours, I had 10 items. So 10 items had a cycle time between 10 and 20. This one said that in the range 50-60 hours, there were 32 items here. So I can see how the distribution of the cycle time is in specific ranges. And I can see, for example, if I set a threshold of 80 hours, let's say, okay, what is more than 80? It's not good. So I have to look at, you can easily identify how many items are over this threshold, because you have 3 items in range 80-90 and 2 items in range higher than 90. So cycle time control chart gives you information about individual issues, and you can see individual issues here, while this one tells you how many issues were in specific ranges. And the third gadget that measures the cycle time or lead time is cycle time as a trend. This one. Again, configuration, it's pretty similar with the other gadgets. So I will select the filter with my support issues. I will measure cycle time. So from the moment it was in progress to done. I will group data by 1 week. And I want to display 5 intervals back. I can also display a data table, but this measures cycle time trend because I measure the data weekly. This is the weekly cycle time, trend. Yeah, and this is the cycle time for every past week for the previous 5 weeks. As I can see in this week, the team resolved as an average, resolved issues in 20 hours, in this one in 23, this one in 24, this one in 29 as an average. So I can see the trend here. The team tends to, this time tends to decrease from a week to another, which is a good sign because my team resolve issues faster. 2 other gadgets that are really helpful for Kanban, the Kanban velocity or throughput. It is based on a filter or board. I will choose a filter for now. You can configure what done means. Done can be any status category done or issues in the last column of the selected board. You can select here an interval date. It's just for interval alignment. So I want 2 weeks starting with Monday. I will pick up any Monday here. So this is just for data alignment. The interval displayed in the chart, you actually configure it from here. You choose the number of intervals displayed from here, because this is relative to the current date. So 5 weeks back actually, and I will calculate the average for the last 3 intervals. I can calculate in issue count, which is specific to Kanban, but I can also calculate in story points. But I will choose issue count. I can also include the subtask in the calculation. And this is the velocity chart for my Kanban team, or the throughput chart. How many issues they deliver every week. Last week they deliver 28, 3 weeks back 22, and so on. And this is how their average velocity looks like. So it's increasing. It's a good sign. What I want to show you is this nice feature that might be useful. This gadget helps you answer the tough question, when will it be done? You might have this question from the customer. You have this option here, show backlog forecast. It displays the backlog from the filter or from the board that you selected. which must be ranked. So you have the backlog ranked based on the velocity calculated here, 24, the current velocity. It gives you an indication about when the issues from the backlog will be resolved, in what time interval. And last but not least is the cumulative flow diagram. So here you select a board or a filter. I will select a time interval for which the data is displayed. And let's say intervals of 1 day. Chart bands are based on status categories. I will explain this right after. It displays 3 bands here: done, in progress, and new. So done are how many issues you had in the board in the done column along the time. And of course, the team resolves issues continuously. So this area is expected to grow in time. It increases continuously. This is how many items were in progress, or in the mid columns of the board, how much work was in progress, what was the backlog size along the time. This gadget is useful because the 3 lines are important. The done line should grow continuously because your team resolves the issue. If it stays flat, means that the team doesn't resolve issues, so the process is blocked somehow. In progress, this should stay flat. If you can see this band enlarging at some point, somewhere is a bottleneck. It means that they do not manage to finish the issues. They start more than they finish. And the new line shows the backlog size, which should stay flat. But if you see this backlog size enlarging in time, means that the team maybe doesn't have enough capacity to handle the workload. The work accumulates in time, or maybe the team underperforms, or there might be other reasons. It's an essential chart for Kanban, and actually it's one of the most advanced analytics in Agile, because it gives you a lot of other indicators here. There are many articles on the internet about how to read the cumulative flow diagram, but personally I like the fact that I can see these 3 bands.
Boost your agility. Try great gadgets now.